Go.
Aloha. This is Dr. Lessin, and I'm with my wife Janet, who's helping us out with this show. This is the fourth part of a series.
Hi.
She's saying hi. For a series called "Amend the Malevolent Matrix: Our Anunnaki Makers Mentored." And what we're going to look at the junk stuff that they laid on us. The stuff we're going to look at today are they have a pattern. The rulers will kill anybody if they need to, so they can keep ruling. That's the first one. They gave us that, and it's still going on today, as you can well see. They gave us slavery from the get-go. They've practiced slavery, and slavery's occurring to this very day. The Russians just enslaved a whole bunch of Ukrainian children, etc. You know, it's still going on big time. We'll go into that. And we're going to look at war, another gift from the Anunnaki, the people that created us and had certain attitudes about war. They dug it, in other words. And the other thing is they deliberately used disease as a weapon. And we'll look at that too. Okay, so let's start with the first slides of part 4, how rulers murder to rule. Next slide, please.
There it is.
Didn't go.
This was the first slide. That's the second slide. Is that the one you want?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to look at. Rulers who will kill in order to rule. An attitude of always competing. Who's on top? Who's not on top? Somebody's always got to be underneath. You know, in America, when the Irish were on the bottom when they came, and Lincoln started drafting them to be soldiers, and then they became the cops, and the Italians and the Southern Europeans started coming in. But now the cops were Irish, and then it goes on and on and on with each wave of peoples. They compete with each other, even as these classes and as individuals compete. We'll go into that a lot. So they're always competing. One of the things is that in this system, men boss, women obey whenever men can make them, and that winners get to rule the losers. That's the way these people operate, and that's built into the mindset they showed us, they taught us, and that we inculcated. Next slide, please. And so it's just, history is so full of them, but one of the most outstanding murderers, that's part of their system, was Alexander the Great. The Great what? He was the great killer. He had his dad killed. He had people all over the world killed. He burned everybody's place. He forced the noble women in different countries to marry his soldiers for a while and breed kids with them. So he was just typical of the kind of dictators that we've had since from the get-go, as a result of the Anunnaki, these people that bred us to create the hybrids that we are. Next slide. We have some outstanding examples of just how this works. Back in Nibiru, where they came from, those guys that were the main contenders, and they're showing up on the top that corner there on my left anyway, they took off all their clothes and got in the middle of the courtyard where everybody could watch, and they had this fight. Whoever won got to be the king. The same thing on Earth. Marduk, known hereabouts as Satan, and Nergal, or Hades, as he's also known, were at a continual battle with each other. And probably the most dramatic one in our history was very early on when the Anunnaki, these people from Nibiru, came to get gold on Earth. Two people who thought they should be king fought it out. And of course, one of them won fair and square, but the guy who lost while he was down taking his obeisance, look at his hand there. He went for the other guy and bit off his manhood. And this is these people. This is what the dominator mindset does to you. Okay, next slide. Another part of this malevolent matrix, the one that's really horrid, is slavery. The basic slavery that all countries use is military conscription. You got to come and kill people, maybe people you don't even know, or they'll kill you. And if you don't do what I say, I'll kill you. Wives are slaves in most countries, in many countries anyhow. And to some degree, that's just sort of built into the mindset that we saw them doing. And of course, the bottom picture shows people being captive in Africa and brought over here. And another kind that we'll see, another kind of slavery is debt slavery. When all you can think of is how you're going to handle all the money things and feed yourself and other people and keep a roof over your head. That's a kind of slavery too. But slavery is in the United States, people tend to think of slavery as just being something that happen to black people. But all over the world, every kind of color of people enslave each other. They saw the Anunnaki doing that, and as soon as they get a chance, almost human groups start one way or another enslaving each other. Next slide, please. A few examples, just to show you some examples. This is one from ancient Greece. Greece was big time when they take captives and prisoners and took towns and stuff. They made slaves work in the mines. Next. In Egypt, the story most of you are familiar with, the pharaohs under Ra or Marduk made the Israelites who were living in Egypt as honored citizens, even married into royalty. They were descendants of Joseph. They turned them from being just citizens into being slaves because they were seen as a fifth column that could arise against the pharaohs, Marduk's pharaohs. And so they were enslaved, even though they were just citizens before that. Next slide. And especially in Islamic countries, wives are, and the studies from the United Nations show, especially in Iraq, Nigeria, Afghanistan, South Sudan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Sub-Saharan Africa, and India, women who are wives, and sometimes they're just kids that are married, are slaves. The men get to decide, the brothers or the uncles or the husband gets to be their rulers. Total power over them. Next. In the United States, I know that the Republicans don't want you to know about it, but there was terrible things going on in terms of enslavement, torture, rape, and dehumanization, which created huge wealth for the Southerners and the institutions like Harvard and Yale and so forth that were basically running the slave trade and made these institutions that these people ran, and the universities extremely wealthy for the Southern whites, and it's all off the backs of the slaves. Next. This is truly a malevolent matrix. Families are traded off, broken up from each other, whipped, killed. Anything goes, and this is the terrible system. The Southerners haven't given up on their stuff. Next. And of course, in this day and age, and it was back in the days of right after emancipation, even prisons have been used as a way to get slave labor. You arrest a person, the person doesn't have a job, so you arrest him as being a vagrant, and then he works and everyone gets a cut, and it's back to slavery. Now, this is still going on right now. Things that make it so that petty offenses and the use of, one of the biggest offenses is not paying your jaywalking ticket, and it goes to all kinds of interest and blah blah. It goes on and on. They're just excuses to put brown people and black people and poor people in prison, where they are again slaves. Slavery is still going down. Next. We can thank the Anunnaki for our shortened lives. They live way, way longer. They know how to use monoatomic gold and other kind of elements to prolong their life. They have technologies to replace limbs and extend life for a very, very long time. And the brightest hybrids, particularly Adapa, who is half Anunnaki and half also the son of their chief scientist, Enki, and a total genius. He said, "Hey, I want this stuff too. Look, I know how to run our HARP facilities, change the weather. I know how to administer. I'm just as smart as you are, Dad. I want to live a long time too." And so the chief scientist said, "Okay, go. I'll let you. The next rocket that goes to Nibiru, I'll let you go, and you can go talk to the king. He's the one that has to decide this." And then what Enki did is he slipped a tablet from his other son that was accompanying Adapa, to give to the king, and said, "Hey, this is my son. Don't keep him here. I don't want to run things. He knows how to run everything for me. I need him. Please send him back." And that's how. And so, consequently, Adapa did live about 1,000 years, but we didn't get any of the extensions that he could have easily brought back if they had chosen. Next slide, please. They shortened our lives. Another part of the malevolent matrix is that men boss and squelch women. One of the very first things that Marduk, known in the Bible as Satan, did when he came to power after the nuking of 5 BCE, and that's when Marduk came into power, is he fired all the women. The women of the contending camps had been working together on knowledge and peaceful means and getting over war. And so he fired all the women, and he put his own son as the sub-boss. Next. One of the most egregious putting down of women occurred when Phoenicia was going to made a peace treaty with Israel, and they sent their princess Jezebel and her retinue to cement it. That's how they cemented allegiances in those days. And in this case, the Anunnaki commander Yahweh was not going to have this a peace alliance, which was going to be based on trade. The Israelites would let the Phoenicians pass through and get the Chinese and Indian trade going. And Yahweh, Enlil, as he was called in those days, wouldn't allow it. And so he basically arranged for the Syrians to kill Jezebel and her whole family and all the people that she had brought with her. And basically, her crime was tolerance. She said, we don't need to just worship one of you guys. Everyone can worship whoever they want. We want to do trade. Well, no way. Next slide. They have used weapons of mass murder from the get-go. They nuked each other on Nibiru so badly that they almost extincted themselves. In 2024 BCE, as we'll see, they did a terrible, terrible war that had consequences for some time after that. I have this picture here. It's from an Indian thing where Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro in Gujarat in India were nuked. But let's go to the next slide. Let's go a little into how the Anunnaki brought the war to us in a really big way. A guy on the right is a representation of Enlil, or Yahweh, and he's asked his father, the king on Nibiru, "Hey, Dad, you got to give your okay. I know where the nuclear missiles are hidden. When I was in exile, Abgal, the pilot that took me to exile, showed me where he and Enki hid the missiles. So I can tell Nergal, who's now working for me, and Ninurta where they are, and I've got the codes and everything, and we'll be able to stop Satan Marduk from. He's about to take the Sinai spaceport and the Jerusalem, where we have our mission control, and his son has subverted Canaan, and so there's a pincer tech, and we're not going to be able to get off the island or communicate with you or anything. And if Marduk does win here on Earth, he's coming after you because he thinks he should be king of Nibiru too. So I suggest you okay this nuking." And so Anu said, "Nuke." Next slide. Go ahead, do it. Nuke them. Next. So they nuked both Sinai, and they took out Sodom and Gomorrah and Zoar by dropping nuclear bombs on the south end of the Salt Sea, which broke through, drowned those cities, and they became the Dead Sea. And at the same time, Nergal was doing this bombing. Ninurta and little son bombed the Sinai, and these two bombings created a nuclear storm. The people did not anticipate this. The only ones that anticipated it were Marduk and Enki, and Marduk's friend, the Persian king, Yima, who prepared with fallout shelters. But everybody else in Iraq, Sumer, where Enlil had his forces, was then subject to the result of this nuclear storm. Next slide. Oh, first, here's a picture of just how Nergal's nuking of the it broke the sea, as you can see there, and it rushes down and it wipes out these cities that are down the river, down the lake, which became this flood. Next. And this just was total wipe out. Enlil had sent his spies to see what was going on in Sodom, and they reported they've gone over to Marduk's son, and so that's why Yahweh said, "Go ahead, do it." Next slide. There's a dark spot right in the middle of the Sinai Peninsula there. That's where there's tephra, the kind of little glass that's formed when you drop nuclear bombs, like we did in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it took everything was dead there for many, many 1,000 years until the Israelis figured out ways to grow stuff again. But this is, there's the scar. Next. So all this energy from these two nukings got together, and it blew over Iraq and Kuwait and southern Turkey, which is all called Sumer in those days. They didn't anticipate they were going to ruin their own place, and it killed all the humans there that they couldn't flee. The Anunnaki saw this coming, and Enki, before he took shelter, warned all them get out of here, and they jumped in their boats and their airplanes and their Vaimanas and beat it, all except for Ninurta's wife, Queen Bao, who stayed with the people of his city, Lagash, to ease them in their death, and she died too. Next slide. Now, germ warfare ain't nothing new. Yahweh deliberately allowed the humans of Iraq to die of diseases as the earth was changing, and there was all kinds of volcanic shifts going on and so forth, releasing all kinds of pathogens. And what Nimma, the head doctor for the Anunnaki, said, oh, these are things we can easily cure. Just give us the go ahead. But the boss said, nah, I want them all to die. But they didn't die. Let them starve, he said. But and Enki, chief scientist, you better not show them how to fish better. But Enki disobeyed, and he said, hey boys, here's how you can fish from the sea, not just from the lakes and the rivers. He snuck savior to some. But again and again, they've used pathogens or disease. In the Middle Ages, Marduk deliberately sprayed germs on selected villages and passed over villages that he didn't want to plague with his biological weapons. So germ warfare has been with us, and it's been used for culling the Earth's population before. Next. And for today's show, that's enough. Pretty junk stuff, but we can do better. At least if we know what it is, we recognize what it is, and know that it's in our programming to kill, to rule, to always have to think we're above somebody else or below somebody else, to think of hierarchy all the time, or in dualism, them versus us. We don't have to do those things. But first, we got to notice that we're doing it. That's the malevolent matrix that studying the Anunnaki with me will help you break out of, I hope. Thank you so much for listening. I hope it ain't too much a downer, but we got to face it, because there's a better way, and we know it, because there's another thing that's going on with the Anunnaki. Their great goddess, Nimma, has been advocating and actively working for partnership and cooperation, and we'll go into that in later episodes. Janet, what would you like to say?
I just want to thank everybody for joining us. You don't have to look at the camera.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, and we will bring you another episode in another week. And feel free to write us. I don't have our websites up here. I'll have to add that, and how you can contact us. But
www.enkispeaks.com, ENKI.com.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Much love and blessings and aloha. Bye for now.